Welcome to the Jump Ball Podcast. I'm your host, Mo Keel. Today, we had a special guest, Ryan Hollins, former NBA player, 10-year vet, went to UCLA for all 4 years. And, I don't feel too good about having him on just because, he's a former Bruin. But I had to do it. Dealt with him with the Clippers for a couple of years, one of my favorite guys. We dove into just kind of what it's like as a player, hearing your name in trade rumors, moving around, working extra hard when you're the journeyman, and how to kind of stay engaged. So, you ready to tip it off? Ryan, how you doing?
Doing good, brother, man. Thanks for having me. About time.
Man, it's been a while. It's one do I really want to put you on is really a debatable thing for me. Even now, I had to decide, do I really want Ryan on?
I believe you. I 100% believe you, Mo.
Like I said in the intro, journeyman, you've been in the league. You were in the league for 9 years. Went to 10. UCLA. That bad.
Around me in my 10 years, Mo.
10? Oh, was it 10 years? Oh, you're right. My bad. My math is wrong. You've been with 30 teams. It feels like about 7 teams. Yeah. You've been all over the place. Eastern Conference, Western Conference, good teams, bad teams, all around. Man, I'm excited to have you on, man. I'm excited to start talking about it. Of course, you and I go back to my last 2 years in the league. I had to deal with your dumb ass.
Well, Mo, you see the camaraderie there, but I mean, it was a blast, man. And obviously, we joke by saying that, but that's just the type of relationship that we had, man. It day in and day out. There was a grind to the NBA, and you were in the video department, I was playing, but the type of team we had, Mo, you would look at me all the time. We talk to each other like, man, this isn't real. This isn't the real NBA. Just because of the friendships, and that's just so rare in professional sports. And like you said, from the teams and the places I've been on, that's what did make LA and that team with Blake Griffin, Chauncey Billups, DeAndre, Matt Barnes, Karam, but all those guys special in that I think we all felt it and we got it. And it was like we were seeing our boys, we were seeing our friends every single day. You know what I'm saying?
Just hanging out. I mean, a fun story. I don't know if you remember this. There was and this is going to be a nice story about you, and probably the only one I really want to tell. When you're with an NBA team, you kind of get random days. You get swag, right? So I think one day somebody gave out a whole bunch of Samsung Surface tablets, right? And everybody got one. The coaches, the players, the training staff, not the video guy. And I was super hot. And then the next day you came in with apparently you already had one, so you just came in and were like, here, take this one. And that has stuck with me. I was like, man, as much shit as I give him, Ryan's a stand-up guy.
But you know what, Mo? That's the thing. And from the experiences I had in the league, I know how hard the equipment man works. I know how hard the video man works. I know how hard the assistant coach works. And guys like you, it wasn't just I understood the business of basketball at the time. So it was hey, Mo, what are you doing? Well, I just got done watching 7 straight hours of film, breaking down a scouting report for you. And guess what? I'm coming to you and I'm going to rebound with you and I'm going to help you shoot. And if you want to stay after for 2 hours, I'm going to stay after for 2 hours. So I'm this dude is grinding in the grind with us, in the grind with me, so a tablet or something like that, or paying for a meal, or it's small, man. And I think that's something that I hope the veterans are passing on to these younger guys. But you got to appreciate as many points as a guy may score, the accomplishments, man. There are 100 guys behind the scenes that are just in the grind with you doing the day-to-day work.
Yeah, and I was and obviously I can only speak to my experiences both in San Antonio and my 2 stints with the Clippers. I was lucky every time to have great guys. I mean, especially that last run. Jamal Crawford was always looking after me.
Oh
Blake,
man.
DJ, CP, everybody down the line. Like there was always, I always had somebody looking after me, and even the assistant coaches. San Antonio, like I don't think I really paid for a lunch that often. It was just constantly the coaches were just, I would just turn to them saying, "Hey, we're going to lunch," and they come and they're covering it, So, Alvin was the best at it. On every road trip, Alvin made sure he was taking, he took me to one dinner on every long road trip we went on, and he would just pick a city, and he's like, "You and I are going to dinner this night," and he'd take me out to a fantastic dinner. So, across the board, I was pretty lucky to get taken care of, and hopefully it continues on that way. You hear stories and it's almost always positive, of guys taking care of the video guys, of the equipment guys, of the trainers and whatnot. Because like you said, man, we're in a grind, and to be honest, during those 2 hours rebounding for you after everything, like we just want to go home.
Man.
Like we're just like, hey man, let's go. Want to get home. And it boils down to the interns and the PR interns and everybody. So it was definitely always appreciated coming from any of the guys. Especially you being my guy. It's always good. Always fun to have you on. But I do want to dive into a couple different topics, and I'm gonna apologize to the listeners. I didn't really put together a full rundown. We're just gonna go off the cuff and talk and share our stories.
Are you kidding me? You've got like 1 billion hours of NBA knowledge, and you think you need a rundown?
Well, I just like to goof off. I just like to keep it. See, that's the thing. Difference between UCLA and USC. I like to keep it nice and tight and in order.
Oh God!
And you're already trying to go all over the place. So like I that's just kind of how we roll. It's okay though. It's okay, Ryan. But I do want to dive into one thing. What was it like? Like, do you still remember draft night?
I do. It was a night I would never forget. I was an interesting player, Mo, and you remember this. Didn't play much in college. Kind of had drama with my coach. Ended up leading my team to the national championship. Put up a double-double in the final game. Go to test out during the draft, and I would like to say I had a pretty weak draft. So it wasn't like I had LeBron or Wade or Bosh or those guys that I'm competing with. And I'm a 7-footer with a 43.5-inch vertical. And I was told that I could go everywhere from the 10th pick in the draft to the 50th pick. And I end up being the 50th pick. And, Mo, like for me, watching your name go off the draft board and drop and drop and drop and drop and hearing about all these other guys who you pretty much know you're better than, there's nothing that gives you a bigger chip on your shoulder than I had draft day.
Right. And to just kind of remind everybody, this is the 2006 draft, and looking at it, top pick, this was the Bargnani draft. He went number 1, Aldridge 2, Adam Morrison 3. You've had a longer career than Morrison. Tyrese Thomas, all those guys, like that. You're right. It wasn't exactly a great draft. And yeah, not a lot of those guys actually ended up sticking around. So, it is kind of a shock that you had ended up dropping all the way to 50. Actually, a pretty good second round. Steve Novak, PJ Tucker, Boobie Gibson, Millsap. Yeah, it's a pretty solid second round. And then, you kind of being the 50th pick. I think after that, I think none of these other guys ever really made it after that. So, what was it like going into going from college into the NBA? Summer, obviously your first experience is summer league and then training camp. What's that experience like? Like, how eye-opening is it to you?
For me, it was kind of learning that there's a dollar amount behind it, and there's a business of basketball, because it was always just get on the floor, man, and just literally just play as hard as you can play. and then do everything that you're told. Like we were almost like I almost want to say like it felt like military style almost, the way we were just like well trained or just disciplined. And now I'm hearing guys go, you don't have to listen to what coach says, or why you going so hard, man? Save your energy. Like I had to figure out some of this stuff because I'm just like, man, I gotta be 150% on every single play. Like I can't cut a corner. I'm just, man, I'm ecstatic to be here, So I think learning that basketball is a business. And I'll give you this one story. Um or just a scenario. Dude, the first time I saw a teammate get cut, uh I cried my eyes out.
Oh man,
And
do you remember who the teammate was?
Kevin Burleson. So Kevin Burleson, when I first got to Charlotte, the Bobcats are now known as the Hornets again. Um, I went to training camp with KB. KB ends up brother of Nate Burleson on Good Morning Football. For those who are probably going Burleson, I know that name. He was the veteran. He was the vet to me. And after every single day, he'd take me out, get me lunch. If we were out late, he'd let me, crash on his couch, you know, wake me up to get me to practice. I mean, always stay in my ear, told me the things I needed to do. And he was the last cut in training camp. And I had never realized that somebody had to get cut. Somebody had to go. I've never, if you think about it, like put it in reality, players don't get cut in high school. You just kind of don't make the team, but there's not like a list where you're in with all the guys. College players don't get cut. You got walk-ons and you got scholarship, but guys don't get cut. Now maybe they want to transfer and that's by choice, but guys don't get cut. They're not there one day and gone the next, and especially not guys who, have your back, like look out for you. So for me, that was crazy. And I had to really realize, like, man, this is different. This is a business, and I'll never forget that. And then the first time I got traded, Mo, I asked to be traded, and I cried my eyes out because it was like, wow, I'm not on the team anymore. They sent me somewhere else. Like, it's a harsh reality. You don't get traded in college or high school.
Right, right. Well, that's actually a good thing you brought up. It's kind of perfect now. Asking to be traded. Like, how did that process work? Granted, everything's different, and every situation is different. But for you, how did that work? How did you go? Was it you go to your agent going like, look, I'm not getting enough burn here in Charlotte. Like, I want a bigger role somewhere else, or whatnot. Like, what all goes into actually requesting a trade?
For me, it came down to a bunch of integrity. And when I say integrity, was I doing my job? Was I busted my butt in practice? Did I do everything that, my team had asked of me? And if I could answer yeah, I thought that now it's time for me to be traded. Direction of the team. We waited till my third year, third year to say, hey, if I'm not starting, I'm not playing major midget minutes, you should let me go, or if the team's not going anywhere. So I think you evaluate all those things, and then sometimes you just need a fresh start. Mo, you know how wild I can be on the court. We don't need to dive into that, but imagine me essentially. Well, you remember those screens I'd set on you, but imagine me. No, in all seriousness, imagine me as a rookie. I'm running wild, man. I'm running wild, and sometimes there's that perspective of you, that image of you that you got to shake. And there's nothing like getting onto another team to essentially be able to do that. And for me, just that fresh start was just really good. And then you get around the team. I went to Dallas my first time, and in Dallas, I'm the only guy who can run and jump. I'm a 7-footer who jumps 40 inches. So every time I jump, every time I dunked, every time I did something, it was special. Dude, I was on the team with Jason Richardson and Gerald Wallace. You think they appreciated my athleticism compared to theirs? It's like, dude, we see this all the time. So it's almost like being the new kid on the block now. So for me, being traded gave me nothing but opportunity in Dallas because they had nothing like me, Mo.
Right. I mean that's the thing, right? Like going through that process and getting traded and trying to like, hey, I got to step up, and then go in a situation in Dallas, which is good ownership, good, good environment. Dirk was there at that point.
Yep.
They're still on their quest to win the championship and everything. So it's not. This is before they got there. By any chance, do you talk about that playoff run? You guys beat the Spurs in the first round and then lost to Denver. Got swept by Denver.
It's funny
because that's your first taste of the playoffs, right?
Very first taste of the playoffs. I had no idea how addicting it would be. All my high school and college coaches would talk about at the time how they hate NBA basketball because guys don't play hard every time and guys don't bring it and yada, yada, yada. You know how that is. But the one thing for all those people that say they don't love NBA basketball, they don't understand it, you don't know how athletic these guys are. If you go to pick up Jason Kidd full court, he's going to blow by you 10 out of 10 times. If you trap in the backcourt, he's going to literally eat you apart. So you can't play that way. Guys are they're literally too good. You can't get away with those things where you can trap and press and do all that in college basketball, and guys are never going to burn you. They're not going to beat you. There's a different level of competition in which you're playing against. And it was crazy because I ended up getting paid that summer. So I go from being on the bench, Mo, to literally starting a game and playing for Dallas and getting paid the more money than I had literally ever seen in my entire life. So for me, that was a special time. And it's funny, I was traded essentially by Larry Brown. And Larry, even though at the time I really didn't understand, he gave me 3 things to do. And, I didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't get it, but it ends up getting me paid. He said, Ryan, I need you to go after every single offensive rebound. Secondly, I need you to block every shot. I said, well, what if it's not my rotation, coach? He said, your job is to block every single shot. Then he said, run the floor every time. Every single time you're in the game, you run the floor. Those elements got me more money than I'd ever seen in my life. And like I said, when I went to Dallas, it was the perfect fit because we have nothing but shooters on the floor. And when I was with the Bobcats, we had nothing but non-shooters, So you go from rolling down the empty lane where you're getting chucked every time to getting wide open dunks alongside Dirk. Like, wow, you guys are just going to let me dunk? Thank you.
Right. It's super easy. Okay. This is great. What that's the summer you got paid, right? Because after Dallas, you were a free agent. You go to Minnesota, you get paid. You put up your best numbers in Minnesota. Statistically, that had to feel great.
It did. Well, in Minnesota for me, and it's funny. Everybody goes, this guy didn't play or he didn't this. Well, I was the young nucleus of the team. I was the core. They were building around me, Kevin Love, and Al Jefferson. And the tough part is you got 3 centers, 3 post players you're trying to build around. It was really hard to figure that out. And I really took my minutes in a starting position, kind of for granted. When I look back, I would concede rebounds. I would just kind of try to get through the game rather than going out and trying to get points or get numbers and whatnot. So I felt like there's a lot more when I look back at that opportunity where I could have had a goal of saying, hey, whether I score or not, average a double-double, average 2 or 3 blocks a game. And we didn't have any veterans in that locker room. So there was no one to pull me aside to say, hey, Ryan, these are the things we're going to need you to do,
Right.
So I, in my mind, I missed out on a huge, huge opportunities there because of that, because of not knowing necessarily how to go about being a professional at that time.
Right. How to kind of put that all together. Let's talk about the one thing I do want to talk about too is hearing your name in trade rumors. Now, the first time you requested a trade, but just hearing your name constantly, especially as the trade deadline comes, you it's kind of coming. And we saw it with the Laker young kids who all in all, didn't handle it very well, to the point that Magic had to go have a meeting and basically tell them, like, yo, you guys, this is part of the business. What's it like to kind of wake up, and this is even kind of really before Twitter got full steam, and you have shams and Woj bombs and players finding out they've been traded by reporters basically before their team calls them.
Man.
I mean, that's a whole other topic. But what's it like to kind of just hear yourself in trade rumors and have to go play a game that night?
I'll be honest, I was scared to death, man. And I say it in a sense that it wasn't me. It was Gerald Wallace. It was Raymond Felton. It was those other names. And it got to a point where I did ask for it, because my minutes weren't there. But, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know where I would be shipped off to. I didn't know what was next. And you literally walk into the arena every day nervous. Like, is this going to be me getting shipped out? I never knew when it was going to be, or if it was going to be me that was going to be gone. So obviously you do everything you can do. As much as you want to say, Mo, be professional, play hard, this and that, you get torn into this mentality where you're like, man, screw the organization. Screw these guys. These guys are my friends. They don't have my back. You run through just this array of emotions, as you play.
Yeah, it's a tough, just kind of being around it, like, as a video guy, like kind of going around it and hearing trade rumors, and you kind of just sort of tippy toe around guys during that time. It's just like, hey, man, I get it. And the thing is, guys in your position, journeyman, guys who kind of always have like a shorter contract, something that can easily, not always guaranteed deals or whatnot. Those guys actually have what's the hardest job in the NBA, because they never know when the organization might just come down and be, hey, you need to go see the GM,
Man.
kind of thing. Like, when we watch Hard Knocks, that's kind of the thing, right? Like cut day or whatever, and they always say like that's the one dude you don't want the phone call from. But, after cut day, you're kind of fine.
Check this out, Mo. This is how naive I was. I remember because Michael Jordan was my owner in Charlotte. And, well, he's the GM, and then he turns into the owner. You knew that was going to happen. And Michael, he calls me into the office, and I'm like, yo, I get to talk to Mike. Like, this is crazy. So I go down, and I'm talking to Jordan, and he goes, don't worry. I'm not calling you up here to cut you. We really like what you're doing. Mo, I swear to God, I didn't even know what you were called to the office for. And I'm like, and I thought about it, like, yeah, we're not bringing you here to cut you. I really like you. He goes, you remind me of Larry Nance. You're long, you're athletic, you can do a lot of things. You run the floor well, blah, blah, blah. We really like what you're doing. But, like, when he said that, it was just so far over my head. But like you said, Mo, when you have that experience, your mindset is, oh, well, what do you want me in the office for? What are you calling me for? You're nervous about it, but I swear, like, it just gone so far over my head. I mean, shoot, at that time, I had never even gone to the coach's office. I didn't even know a couple of those rooms existed.
Right. Well, it's funny because it's like I always used to be like when I'd get an unexpected phone call from, Neil O'Shea or something like that. My first thought was always like, what did I do? What didn't I do? What was I supposed to do? Those were the first three things I thought of in my head, like in that order. Like, what did I do?
It wasn't me.
What didn't I do? What was I supposed to do? And then, it's just him asking for an edit. But it was like, but you have that moment in your mind where you're just like, and I'm sure when Jordan tells you like, you're like, we're not going to cut you. I'm sure that wasn't even entering your mind till he said that.
No, yeah, at that time, no. And, it's funny you say that, Mo. People don't understand. There are so many unwritten rules to the NBA. There's a lot of unwritten rules there. And, if whether a guy's doing his job or not, there's not a lot of people that are going to come around and say, hey, Mo, you did a poor job here or there. You're just going to be let go. Now, you may find some really good people in the organization that are going to take care of you. Say, hey, Mo, or hey, Ryan, you're talking too much, or hey, get more work done, or this is what we expect or what we don't expect. But in a lot of situations, you're actually not told. And these are just understandings. No one ever comes to you and says, hey, you need to work hard. You need to stay extra 2 hours after But I know there's this, like you said, like I said, Mo, the unwritten rule. So even when I talk about you or you bring my name up, you can probably say stories. And this isn't that I was told to do. You know what? Every day after practice, Ryan stayed after and worked. Every day after practice, Ryan ran. Every day after practice, this guy would go to the weight room. And these are just things or even stuff that you would do. Hey, I cleaned up after myself, or hey, after I send my report, I do this and this. That nobody's necessarily going to remind you of, and you have some good people that tell you, but like you don't know the consensus or what's going on. There's this kind of nervous anxiety behind your back in the NBA, right?
They never tell you. They never tell you. That's kind of the thing. Like, they're never really kind of going to tell you, like, hey, you're slacking, or where you need to pick up or get better.
Yep.
That's such an important thing. Just next thing you know, you're going to get waived or traded or let go or, whatnot. What does it feel like, kind of put yourself, so you can, excuse me, I butchered that. That's not going to get edited out because I don't do a good job editing.
When have I known you to edit something, Mo?
Only videos, my man. Only videos. But so you can kind of put yourself in the kids' positions with the Lakers. Like, let's bring it back a little bit to what's going on now, to kind of that whole thing of just like, I mean, the Anthony Davis thing went on for like 2 weeks, and it really felt like each day felt like 3 weeks of its own, and hearing this package and this package, not only hearing that like you're going to be, these are the guys the organization's willing to let go to get Davis, and every organization makes the same cliche afterwards, like, hey man, it's if your name's in trade rumors, that means somebody wants you. Problem was, the Pelicans didn't want them. So, like, it's almost the exact opposite. You heard your name in trade rumors,
Yep.
and you heard the Pelicans don't want you. So, the team you're playing for doesn't really want you now. And the team they wanted to trade you to didn't want you. What is that, as a player, like, what does that kind of do to your mindset and your confidence? And now you got to go in and 25 games left and try to make a playoff push.
Like I said, man, you really get a me against the world type of mentality. And if they don't want me or they're not thinking of me, I'm gonna make them think of me. And that's honestly the mindset that you get. And honestly, I cannot tell you how poorly that whole trade deal had gone, Mo. And I mean monumental. By the time, Mo, you have experience with this just as much as I do. By the time a name is leaked in the trade, dude's already traded. Both teams have shaken hands. They've agreed, which makes me think that there's just something that went terribly wrong in that trade. When I say terribly wrong, just in the sense that, like, hey, either those guys weren't up for sale, or it wasn't all those names, or it was like, hey, here's your pick of this is in this. Which guy do you want? So when I hear that, that's what comes to mind, in that who dropped the ball, who threw who under the bus, Mo, because that wasn't supposed to happen. That it never, when it leaks, right, it's always there and it's always happened.
Right. And that's the thing. It's just, it was there, it was around. There's no way getting around it. You're getting text messages from your boys. Even if you say, like, I don't look at social media or I don't look at media, we all know that's a lie, for the most part. But it's like you have that. Even if you don't, you're still getting those messages from your own people, going like, "Yo, what's going on?" What does it do when you do get traded mid-season? Like, what's the impact on like the family aspect of it? Some guys always kind of pick up the whole family and move. Some guys just go and the family stays behind. Like, how hard is that side of it?
It's incredibly hard. The beautiful part for me, at least in the meanwhile, when I did get traded, was that my kids were young, and it's nothing to just pick them up and take them out of preschool. You do that like it's like, there's no real difference. What happens is when they start to get friends and all that comes into play, and you're trying to settle down, and they get a little older, to yank them out of the second or third grade mids in the middle of the season and take them to another school is incredibly hard. So The time I did fall into that, or it was probably the biggest strain, definitely the biggest strain I've had on my family, was in Cleveland, because I went into the year right after the lockout, knowing that I was going to Boston and saying, "Hey, get me out of my deal. I don't want to be here. This isn't working out." And by the time I went there, they went all the way through the deadline and wouldn't trade me. And they didn't think that I knew that. That's why I'm not fond of Chris Gilbert at all. And there's a reason he was fired. And I don't wish anybody to get fired, but he was just doing a poor job. He's going back and forth and telling Boston, who wanted me, that, you know what? If you want Ryan Hollins, you got to give us a first round pick. Well, dude, I definitely wasn't worth a first round pick at the time. And they're literally doing everything to not let me go there in that situation. So I eventually asked them, "Hey, waive me out of my contract, since you guys don't want to, you don't want to, see me go there and play. Just waive me out of my contract so I can get an opportunity, in Boston, because I know they want me and I have the same interest in them and actually being there." So, that was an intriguing season. And to your question, it was incredibly tough, because the longer that he didn't trade me, I was away from my family. And I told my family to stay back for the exact reason that I didn't plan on being there. I knew we were going to move, that if we were going to move, I'm only going to make one move for my family. And it really just held everything up. Really one of the hardest years of my athletic career.
All right. I mean, that makes sense. So let's shift a little bit away from like trades and all that. I kind of want to talk about the the next man kind of mentality that we sort of have in the NBA. Like, you're not getting a ton of minutes, but somebody could go down and boom, you have to step up and be ready to go. How hard is it to kind of maintain not just your conditioning, but your mental kind of staying engaged mentally? Like, here's a great, just from the movie Any Given Sunday, right? Willie Beeman's the third string quarterback, never expects to go in. When the backup gets hurt, he's sitting there eating pork rinds or whatever, doesn't even know where his helmet is or anything like that. Like it's hard to stay engaged 82 games when you're probably only going to get to play maybe half of them, and a good number of them are going to be garbage minutes. How do you kind of maintain, staying engaged mentally and obviously on the physical side of it?
I mean, it always depends on the organization you're in, and kind of the opportunity that's in front of you. But I say the one thing to kind of keep you engaged is you can never be content, man. I'll be honest, Mo. It's literally you're living a life of unrest, and that's why they call you a professional. Everybody can't do it. It's funny, people can look at the TV, look at the end of the bench, look at the front of the bench, say they could be NBA players. Well, guess what? You can't, because after that 10% of you being a one percenter of a physical athlete, a specimen, a 40-inch vertical, 7 feet tall, eyes in the back of your head, however you want to name it, you got guys that are mentally prepared to play. And it means you literally live in unrest. And when I say unrest, you're never content. Walking around your life, every day of your life, literally never being content. And things like that eat you apart, not just as a person, but as a man, as a human being. They literally tear you apart, knowing that you've got to be upset with yourself in the back of your mind. You got to be frustrated. You got to be saying, man, I should be in the game right now. I should play. And the second that you lose that competitive edge, you're done. You're done, Mo. You're done. And Mo, I know you've seen guys lose that edge and fall in with that. Hey, I'm on the bench. I'm not gonna play. I'm just here or whatever. They're on the first thing out the door. So I appreciate guys like you, Mo, that we're coming to compete. And if it was me going against anybody on the team, I'm volleying for minutes. I'm kicking. I'm screaming. I'm fighting. I'm not going out without a buzz. And also, you got to be a good guy, because nobody wants a guy on their bench sitting there that's going to disrupt the team because he feels like he should be getting minutes. So, a guy like myself, even though I'm happy, I'm smiling in everybody's face, I'm calling my agent. We're working the lines. I'm meeting with whoever my coach is, saying, why am I not in the game? I'm not content in this position. And that's how you end up getting longevity in the league.
Right. And like to give you a credit, and there are other guys too. Like I've seen guys who I've seen you do it after a game where you may not have gotten any minutes or got very little. After the coach does the post game talk or whatever, not even change, just jump right into the weight room and start running on the treadmill or at the time grab our guy Rich Williams, or at the time strength and conditioning coach, and have him kind of start working with you and kind of get some extra reps to kind of just stay ready to go. I mean, you always wanted video and was always ready and engaged in everything. So you're right. And one other aspect, and this is more of a fun thing to talk about, but another aspect of that side of when you're not playing a lot of minutes is you get to play the video room in 3-on-3. And we had many battles. I probably shouldn't have been out there. It's not like I was good enough to hang with NBA players. I just knew enough to not hurt you guys. But like, and for those guys who think they can hang with NBA players, I just want to say, like, I'm 5'10". I'm a decent ball player. I can hang in most pickup games. I'll never forget, man. I thought I had a wide open layup. And as I'm going up with my left hand to lay it up, I just see a hand come in and just take the ball out of my hands. Like, you didn't even jump, and that was bullshit. That hurt my feelings, Ryan. That was not cool. But like, you kind of just get that understanding of like, man, this is a wide open. Oh no, it's not at all wide open. You kind of get an understanding of that stuff. But those 3-on-3 battles we had, I mean, it was me, you. Ramen Spasado was the head video guy. We had Coach Dave Severance. We've had Grant Hill on the court. We had Roni Turioff. I mean, we had some battles on that court.
Oh no, man. We would get it in, and Mo, we always talked about something not being normal. Well, for one, you got NBA players that know enough etiquette to not try to, take an elbow across the face, or you or Ramen or Super Dave, our assistants helping us out. And two, to try to get in good work against each other, because, we just play one-on-one or we get up some shots, you're not necessarily going to be there. And it's funny you mentioned Grant Hill. And, for a guy like myself, it was humbling, because those for who don't know, if you're in a 3-on-3 squad of the guys who have to get in work, where all the starters, the guys who played, have to do something else, you feel like a scrub. You're I don't want to say the lowest of the low, but you're not one of the big dogs.
Right.
And when I see one of the, aside from injury, an all-star, a guy who played minutes, one of the greatest college basketball players we've ever seen in Grant Hill, going hard as heck in 3-on-3, I can't help but look at myself and say, why am I not doing the same? So when I think of guys like Grant Hill and seeing that example that was set for me, I really appreciate what they did. And for me, now those moments start to get contagious and you go out there and work. But dude, it is hard, but it takes a lot of professionalism. And I mean, Mo, literally, I've laid you out a few times on some screens, man. So the fact that you just get up and keep fighting and like, hey, that's cool, Ryan, do it again.
Well, I knew you had to get ready for the games, but I'll tell you what, when I got up into the video room, I was not saying, hey, that's cool.
Oh my gosh.
This damn Ryan, man, freaking elbow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. But we had some battles, man, but it's an important part of it, really kind of, important part to just kind of keep you guys in somewhat of a rhythm and kind of keep your game ready. I mean, unfortunately, we just didn't have. I mean, unfortunately, you had to play with me on the court. And thankfully, I never hurt anybody. In that regard, hopefully, I hurt somebody's confidence. I know I beat DJ in 1-on-1 once.
Was it a free throw contest?
No, we played straight up 1-on-1. It was his rookie year, and then as soon as it was just a 3, and as soon as I made my third shot, I left the building. I told him I'd never play him again. So it was just kind of that sort of stuff. But as guys, you build that kind of camaraderie, and then it's important to kind of keep you guys in shape. Like, we looked at that as part of our job, and of course it was fun for me. I got to play on the court with you, with NBA players. I mean,
well, it's conceptually it's fun until you get hit or somebody dunks in your face or pops you with an elbow. But like, Mo, I will say one thing, dude, and this is from the bottom of my, you're literally one of the toughest guys I know. I've seen you take some hits. I've seen you get blasted, and I've seen you literally pop right up off the floor. Where guys are nervous, but you kind of got it, man. And everybody does not buy into team basketball or what they need to do or who they need to be. And it's dude, what you done, even in the video room, it's a selfless job, man. You're never going to get the credit. You're never going to get the ultimate credit. After the team gets a big win and you just watch 20 hours of film, no one's going, man, that video guy was great tonight, wasn't he?
That pregame edit.
That
pregame edit got us going. I'm going to take one win. I'm taking one win that I definitely delivered, and that was Game 1 against Memphis. We ended up losing the series, we blew them out in Game 1. And that was because I told Vinny that morning I created a hype video. And we set up a whole, a bunch of clips, just highlights of us versus Memphis that year. It was a rematch. We had just beaten them in Game 7. There was definitely animosity between the two teams. And, I just turned to Vinny. I said, man, we're going to kill these guys with film all week with pregame stuff. I said, when we get to pregame, let's not even just let's pretend we're doing a regular pregame film and then just hit the lights. And I had the whole thing going. I woke up in a new Bugatti, playing. I had Meek Mill Dreams and Nightmares going. Yep. I had spliced in clips of Gladiator of Russell Crowe chopping people's heads off and stuff like that, and spliced in with as many highlights as I possibly could find for our games against Memphis. And man, listen, all I know is we go out and we win. I'm taking that win. That was me. That wasn't you guys.
It's funny you're telling it to this day. I didn't know where that came from. I mean, Vinny kind of didn't throw you the credit for it, but I do remember that. That was hype, man. And I remember just watching, and as a player, you don't expect it, and it really was a curveball. And watching it, it was kind of like, dang, guys, we kind of did something special here, or we got a huge opportunity here. And, you just kind of think outside of yourself. And it was just like, man, let's just go play. If it was confidence, it's just sometimes you need a reminder. You it's so easy in the width of an 82-game season and playoffs to kind of man, you forget who you are. And just that slip of confidence can catch you.
I mean, the thing that people don't understand about the playoffs more than anything else, the smallest mistake can come back to haunt you. It's so detailed oriented, but we drill you guys, especially that first game of the playoffs. Every team has drilled their every staff has drilled those guys with film on top of film on top of film. Season usually ends on Wednesday. First game's on Saturday. You're usually watching film on Thursday, watching film on Friday, running through some practice stuff. You're going to do a shoot around and watch some more film. You get hit over the head with film, so we felt like, we had to change it up. And thankfully Vinny let me do it. It was definitely something in the work. I actually knew it was going to work once I saw how hyped our coaching staff got at shoot around. Because I had showed it to them in the pregame meeting,
my God.
And I had and Pack was fired up. Coach Pack, Robert Pack, was with us, and I could just see him ready. He wanted to go play, so I was like, okay, this is gonna work.
Mo, you got to give us some credit here, and I know you have NBA expertise. If you're watching a highlight from that season. It was, as far as highlights was concerned, just highlights. We quite possibly probably had one of the greatest years in NBA history, because we would have 10 and 20 dunk games. You forget our name was Lob City. Am I not mistaken, Mo? So I'm sure you had a pick, right?
I mean, it was the hardest thing about making these tapes sometimes is you have so many clips. There's two situations. You can be a team that just doesn't have a lot of clips, and you can be a team that has too many. You know what I mean? Because then you have to decide which ones do you want to use and which ones don't you want to use. When you don't have a lot of clips, you're putting them all in, and then you're putting in jumpers. which don't really get you hyped up, you know. Whereas the other way around, it's like, do I put this dunk in or this dunk? Do I put this Eric Bledsoe play in here or do I put this one? You know, you kind of, and you want to touch on everybody. And the hardest thing with those things, too, is not everybody has a great highlight package. So, you know, but in that sense, too, with that team, I mean, we had CP running the squad. We had Chauncey. We had obviously Blake and DJ flying through the rims. We had Roney with hustle plays and everything you can possibly ask for in that regard, too. I mean, Matt Barnes, all these guys. Like, we had just a bunch of guys that created a lot of highlights, both on the offense and defensive end. So it was kind of a lot of fun to put together. And, you know, just kind of timing it right with music and everything and doing all that fun stuff. It was a lot of fun to make. But, you know, let's get to the more important stuff. As much as we're going to hype me up, you know, I'm happy. I'm going to walk away with my head big after this podcast. What's something you miss from your playing days? Like what is it like? You know, it's been a couple years now. You're out. You're hustling in the media. You're on everything. I hear you on Sirius Radio. I hear you on ESPN. I hear you when I watch Clipper games. I get tired of you, Ryan. But what do you miss from your playing days?
As much as I want to run from it, and you know, this is my first year being a part of the Clippers broadcast, play-by-play, color, and post game. Right before the game, when I hear that the arena go silent and you hear the heartbeat of the crowd, you see the energy in the stadium, and you run out and the crowd goes nuts, the emotions of the stadium, you can't simulate that. Mo, you know this. I'm not a guy who smokes or drinks, never have been. You know, don't do anything crazy, stay out of trouble. That was my drug. It was. I can't hide that. You know, I'm as passionate a player as they have. So to not have that, or, you know, to kind of see it, man, I felt like I was going through some withdrawals. You know, I mean, I almost caught myself, you know, throwing a chest bump to Tobias Harris and Bobby before they got traded, or, you know, I got my full suit on, man. I'm ready to go get it in, man. So you have to try to temper some of those emotions, but man, there's nothing like that, Mo. There's nothing like it, man. There's no simulation for it. You know, I played in the Big Three. I will say that was pretty exciting. I got chills from being out there, from going, but it's not the same, Mo, quite as playing in the game, but special nonetheless.
Are you gonna go back to the Big Three this year?
Oh yeah, I'm in, man. It was one of the coolest things ever, man. Imagine everybody being on the same team, if that makes sense, because we're all with each other in the hotels, or we're getting on the same bus, and guys are competing. They're not competing the same way as we did, you know, when we played formally, but it's still enough to where, you know, you're getting it in, man. You're getting a cool little, really cool environment, man, and it's really spoiling, man. And there's enough similarities, there's enough going on to where it does remind you of the NBA. You know, you still do see your favorite players, though, and I can only see that thing growing and growing. I mean, it's crazy, Mo. Like, after a game, it's almost like an NBA AAU almost, where everybody's out there, like, hanging around. Everybody's kicking it. Everybody's having a good time after the game, and even watching the other games. And it's like, it's the coolest thing ever, man. If you haven't seen a Big Three game, I really encourage for you to go out and do so. But it's really, really cool, dude. Really cool.
Awesome, dude. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy you're playing again and stuff, and you're getting back in shape. I'm gonna ask you this last question, then I'll let you go, because we're already kind of going over the time I promised. I wouldn't keep you too long. Plus, I want to get rid of you anyways. All right. So all your years, you know, in the NBA, I mean, you've played with some great coaches, Doc Rivers, Larry Brown, obviously had the greatest video coordinator of all time in me. You know, who was I'm gonna split this question up into two ways. What coach taught you the most? It may not have been your favorite coach, but what coach taught you the most? You told that story about Larry Brown kind of giving you those three things you need to know. What coach taught you the most, and what coach did you enjoy playing for the most?
Coach I enjoyed playing for the most in my career was Dave Yeager. And I say that because I was at a point in my career where me and Dave like really like talk basketball, like nerded out. And I knew how to be effective. And like it was almost like it just clicked. And Mo, it takes years before that player coach relationship really bonds and takes form. And me and Dave had it. And it was to the point where and keep in mind, this is a guy off the bench, man. This is a guy in and out of the lineup, on 10 days, on the team, not on the team. And shoot, I may even be responsible for Dave getting fired because this dude went to bat for me like I was family. It was almost like, well, how much of his contract is he giving you, Dave? And you can't really explain kind of what we had there in Memphis. And even though, Mike and Mark ended up getting hurt that year, I mean, we played outstanding basketball. There's not so many guys on 10-day contracts, Mo, that are the focal point of every single scouting report coming into the game. It really, really doesn't quite add up. So I will say playing for him. And I don't know. I feel like I'm going to cheat your question a bit, but it wasn't a coach that I learned the most from in the NBA.
Oh, it was me.
It was a
Great.
it was a player.
Oh,
It was a player, and I don't know if I'm ruining what you wanted from me, but Kevin Garnett, he taught me how to be a professional. And Mo, honestly, I didn't think that I had too many more years left in the NBA if it wasn't for what Kevin Garnett did for myself. He taught me how to be a pro. And I know you always talk about one of the things that I would do on the floor is I would talk, I would communicate, I would scream out the other team's plays, I would do all that stuff. That's Kevin Garnett. Kevin taught me how to love the game of basketball again, and he taught me how to work. So if I could say that I learned the most from anybody, it would be Kevin. And I could learn from him because he's a player who's long, athletic, and done it at a high level that I could relate to. So if Kevin Garnett in his 15th or 16th or probably 17th year at that time could tell me like, hey Ryan, show on a pick and roll, get back and get a rebound. Don't let the guy get the touch on the elbow. No, really, we have a no elbow touch rule. Don't make excuses. Just do what I'm telling you to do because I'm living it and I'm doing it. That helped me grow more than anybody. If a point guard came to me, if Dirk came to me and was like, hey, man, work on your shooting, I couldn't relate to that. Jason Kidd goes, hey, work on your passing. Yeah, that's not going to improve. But I look at Kevin Garnett, I was similar enough to where I was really able to grow there.
right. That's awesome, man. And I've heard nothing but great things about the kind of vet he was. And we saw him sort of, I kind of thought he might even fall into coaching a little bit when he was working with some Clippers a couple years ago. And whatnot. So it wouldn't surprise me if he continues to impart that knowledge. But that's awesome, man. Ryan, thank you so much, dude. You guys can find him. Ryan, what's your Twitter and Instagram handle so people can follow
I'm
you?
Ryan Hollins on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm just Ryan Hollins. So
I might have
yeah,
talked. I might have spoke over you. What's your Twitter handle again?
the Ryan Hollins. The Ryan Hollins. Instagram, just Ryan Hollins. So, oh man, I appreciate it, man. Anytime, anything I can do for you, Mo. It's funny, Mo. I don't know if you get this feeling, but I just think for me and you on this side, it's almost like we're giving away the secrets of the trade. Because for so long we were behind the scenes and keeping everything hush hush and doing the stuff we had to do. And now you have an opportunity to speak basketball and talk it, and we know what's really going on. So I couldn't be more ecstatic that you come over to the dark side.
I love it. I love it on the dark side, man. This is more fun.
No, man.
I wish I did. I wish I had done a better job connecting with media people when I was a video coordinator and had more access. But again, at that time, my head was spinning. I was just trying to get film out, and deal with your knucklehead. But Ryan, we're definitely going to do this again, man. Thank you again for coming on, and hey, man, fight on.
Oh wow, man. 8 clap, man. I appreciate it, bro.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later. That's it for our show. Be sure to rate us, like us, leave reviews on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever else you go to listen to your podcast. Have yourselves a great week.